Hello fellow investors and welcome to Sylle Invest, where we bring knowledge to investing. What does Newlox Gold's business models look like? Today I will present the different models, how they compare to each other and regular artisanal mining, and how these models generate income for Newlox. I'll start by briefly explaining the company Newlox Gold Ventures. Newlox is an ESG gold producer that collaborates with artisanal miners. They do no gold exploration, which is expensive and risky. They extract 90% of the gold, whereas artisanal mining practices are at best 40%. They do environmental remediation by removing mercury from tailings and also by preventing mercury from being used in the first place. They also have facilities that are low cost, high margin and built quickly in less than 6 months. So before I go into these Newlox models, I want to talk about why they are good and why they are needed. And in order to do that, I'm going to talk about regular miners. I'm going to talk a little bit about artisanal miners, like comparing them. I'm going to talk about the artisanal mining practice and also a bit about mercury and the disadvantages it brings. So let's start by looking at regular miners. And I'm going to do that with an image. Here we can see, expensive machines, advanced tools. This is how most of the gold in the world is extracted. It's a corporation that buys these expensive things and they hire people to do the mining for them. Here's also an example. We see different levels of shafts. This is how they extract the ore from the ground. And this is how 80% of the gold is extracted in the world. The other 20% is extracted with artisanal mining or small scale gold mining. So yeah, let's dive deep down into comparing them. So this is how it's usually done, but how is it done with artisanal mining? Well, first of all, what is artisanal mining? Artisanal miners are miners who are not officially employed by a mining company, but works independently, mining minerals using their own resources, usually by hand. And it looks a little something like this. Here we have, it's a big difference from the pictures before. This is a very common sight. There's a lot of artisanal miners that use hands, they use shovels and they use pickaxes to get the ore from the ground. It's basic, very basic and hard work, but it works. It works for them. And here we have a mine where a miner takes with a cartwheel, gets out the ore from there. And it's very heavy work, very physical. It's a lot more hard when you compare to with all these machines where you have this steering wheel and the machine does all the work for you. Here it's very physical, but it's what they have. And here we see mercury in his hand. And then you might ask, why would he have mercury in his hand? Well, the reason for this is after they've processed all of this ore, you get this, in the last steps, you get this fluid with a lot of gold content. And to get that gold out of this fluid, you use mercury, because mercury has this feature where it merges with the gold. So you take the mercury, put it into the water, and you wiggle it a bit, and they combine. So you get these mercury gold ball. So yeah, that's why you use mercury this way. So how do you get the gold from that ball? You use a blowtorch. Literally, to the right here, you can see he's actually holding a blowtorch and putting fire straight to the mercury gold ball. And since the mercury boils at a lower temperature, it will separate from the gold, which will create this mercury vapor that the artisanal miners are going to inhale. So they're going to get this mercury into their lungs, which is very dangerous and very, very toxic. But in the end, they do get the gold left there, and that's how they make their money. It's how they get by. Not everyone in this world have many options, and this is one way for them to survive. And yeah, so this process, how can we improve it? How can we help them extract these gold? Well, Newlox is going to focus on this part. So they're going to make sure that the artisanal miners does not have to work with the mercury as they do right now. So removing this toxic part, making life easier for them, and also making a good service for the environment. But before we get there, I'm going to talk about mercury and why it's dangerous. So mercury, it's a neurotoxin. It's poisonous to nerve tissue. And artisanal mining, it creates two types of mercury pollution in this world. Mercury in the tailings and mercury in the air with mercury vapor, as I showed you just before. Mercury is used in many different ways in artisanal mining. In one of the processes, like the waste product is tailings that contain mercury that is used to extract the gold. And these tailings then, like what are the disadvantages? Well, so mercury in the tailings. So in the environment, mercury can be transformed to methyl mercury, which is more potent than mercury. Methyl mercury gets taken up by microorganisms, which gets consumed by animals like bugs and fishes, that then gets consumed by humans. And that's how we get methyl mercury in our body and in our systems. High level of methyl mercury in babies and young children may harm their nervous systems. This affects their ability to think and learn, and also causes birth defects. Even animals are affected by high level of methyl mercury. We've all seen these fishes that can't swim, or the birds that do not know how to fly. A lot of that is caused by mercury poisoning. And we also have the mercury vapor. So artisanal miners get exposed to this when they heat the mercury to separate it from the gold, as we showed before. Typically, no measures are taken to recover the mercury or prevent mercury inhalation. Breathing mercury vapor can harm the brain, heart, kidney, lungs, and immune system. This is like so bad. And not only that, like artisanal mining is by far the largest source of mercury pollution in the world. 38%, like melt that. 38% of the world like mercury pollution. And just to make it clearer, I brought you a diagram. And as we can see, it's by far the #1 source of mercury pollution. I thought it was something else, like, waste from products, like your e-waste, but that's just a fraction compared to the artisanal and small scale mining. So this is a huge problem. And if we can help the artisanal miners like stop using mercury, like having this removed would be so beneficial for the environment and also for their own health, because they are hurting themselves very bad right now. So why is mercury used? It's cheap, it's abundant, and it's easy to use. Like they know it's toxic, they know it's dangerous, and they know it's slowly killing them. But at the same time, they don't have many options. Like mercury, it's cheap, it's abundant, and easy to use. They don't have this education, they don't have these advanced tools, they don't have the money to buy the very expensive materials. So this is what they have to work with, and it works. They get the goal, and they get to survive at the cost of their health. And we need to help them somehow, and that's where Newlox steps in. But before we get there, I want to talk about an approach I saw. I read this scientific paper, which was very interesting. I can really recommend you to read it. And they suggested an approach for a solution to this mercury problem. So I'm going to read it straight from there. So the majority of ASGM, like artisanal and small scale gold mining, is carried out in developing nations by miners that rely on gold sales for their livelihood. Therefore, any technology designed to solve the mercury problem must be inexpensive and ideally support the miners in their trade. Support of these miners through new and sustainable mining practices is critical because they typically live in areas with few other economic opportunities. They don't have, like it says, they don't have so many opportunities, and this is one way to get by. Great, by the way, article. All the links for the sources is going to be in the video description. I highly recommend you to read it, especially this paper. It is fascinating. And yeah, I'll already show you a glimpse. So let's look at the models of Newlox. I put so much effort into this, and I'm really happy. And if you don't like this, I would feel very bad. So please do. I use a lot of images to show you the different models that are out there. So I'm going to use the mouse for this. Up here we have the artisanal model, which is the common model, like the model that the artisanal miners use today. And down here we have two models, which are the Newlox models, the 50/50 model and the by tailings model. So I'm going to show you how they differ and why these two make a difference in the world. Let's start by the artisanal model. So we have these mines, or basically even the ground itself, and then we have the artisanal miners that physically extract the ore. And what do we get from this? We get tailings, which basically is ore waste, like big piles of ore. And we also have 100% of the original gold content because it has some gold in it. So how do we extract this gold? Well, usually they use mercury. So they process the mercury in different ways, and what is left here is 60% of the gold content and also mercury. So this is contaminated tailings. So they turned normal tailings to contaminated tailings, but they did extract the 40% of the gold. This is like the grand prize. This is what they want. At the cost of creating this contaminated tailings, and they can't do much with this because no one wants to touch this toxic waste. So it's basically left in big piles. So in Costa Rica they have piles of contaminated tailings like all over the place, which is not good for the environment. But they survive, they get the gold. It is one way of, getting by. So how can we improve this process? This is the common practice today. So how can we improve it? Well, we're going to start with looking at the 50-50 model here. So this box here, it stays basically the same. So the miners, they're going to extract the ore just like before, and we're going to have these piles with like unprocessed ore. So what do? So instead of using the mercury, they give this ore to Newlox. So Newlox process this ore instead of the miners, and their process use no mercury. And as we mentioned in the beginning, they take out 90% of the gold. So what are we left with? Well, we have clean tailings with 10% of the original gold content. So, and these clean tailings, since they are clean, they can be used in building roads, they can be used in producing bricks. They have many uses. So this is no longer a hazard. This is actually a good product. But most of all, we have this 90% gold content, which is the grand prize. So why is this good? Like, how would the artisanal miners benefit from this? Well, it's the 50-50 model. So they split the profit. So the revenue from this gold, and then you subtract the processing cost, which isn't too much actually. And then they split 50-50 on the remaining profit. So from my calculation, it's basically around this level, so basically the same. So what does this effectively do for the artisanal miners? Well, it means that they do this. They do only part of the work, and they no longer need to do this very toxic and dangerous part of the work, like no mercury, and they stay safe, and they gain about the same money. So less work, more safe work, and they still get paid. And Newlox at the same time, they get to keep a lot of this gold. So Newlox gains money, the miners gains money, and at the same time, we save them from being exposed to this mercury, and we no longer create these tailings that intoxicates the environment and make sure, so we don't eat the fish that contain this mercury. So this is a win in many, many ways. Looking down, we see the buy tailings model, and it's actually very, very simple. What does this do? Well, these contaminated tailings, nobody wants them. They're everywhere. They're just laying around. So what they do is they buy them. Literally, they buy these contaminated tailings because they have a process that extract the mercury from this too. So they take these tailings and they process it. And what do they get? Well, they have the clean tailings, which can go to roads, etc., like before. It has 6% of the original gold content, and it extracts 54% of those 60%. So they extract a lot of gold, and they also extract the mercury, and they have these clean tailings. So this is the model where they clean the environment by buying these tailings that nobody wants. And in the 50-50 model, they basically take away the dangerous part of working or producing the gold by using their own process. So they make life easier for the miners. Okay, so moving on from here, let's compare the Newlox models with let's do a profit comparison and an advantage comparison to see how do they differ. Let's start by looking at the profit. So both of them, they have basically the same revenue. They process gold and they save the gold. So after selling the gold, they have basically the same revenue. So here we have $5 marks. So how like how does this revenue spend, like how is this spent on different parts? So we can see the operating cost is like basically one out of these $5 marks. So the operating cost is very low, and both of them have them. What makes it different is the 50/50 cut and the buy tailings. So the 50/50 model is basically like after the operating cost, after the revenue, like and removing the operating cost, they have a profit of like 4 of the dollar mark. It's like a huge profit margin, and then they split it. So 50% goes to the artisanal miners and 50% goes to Newlox. And in the buy tailings model, they don't have this split. They have the cost of buying the tailings, and since nobody wants them, it's really cheap. So the profit in the buy tailings model is like these margins are huge. Like this margin is huge, but this margin is very huge, like very, very profitable, while at the same time being good for the environment, and also in this case also very good for the miners. So looking at the advantages, looking at the 50/50 model over there, we see that it prevents mercury from being used in the first place. They take away the process where they use mercury, which is very nice. And also improves the social conditions for miners, as they remove this dangerous part of their work, so they can be more healthy while still enjoying the same profits as before. And looking at the buy tailings model, we see that they remove mercury from existing tailings. They clean up the world from mercury just laying around and poisoning the environment. And at the same time, they have very high profits, like really high profits. So yeah, these are like the profit comparison. These are the advantages between the two. And as I showed you earlier, these are the 3 different models. Yeah, and that's how it works. That's all I had for today. Feel free to join Penny Queen's Discord and discuss the company with me and other investors. I am very active at this Discord, and the link to this Discord is in the description in the video. And also as a disclaimer, I own shares of this company. I love Newlox Gold. I love what they do, and I will keep these shares for many, many years to come. And also, I'm not a financial advisor. Only spend what you can afford to lose. And please do your own due diligence. Never listen to one source, like it's like the almighty truth. Like, get your own opinion, do your own research, and become an intelligent investor, so you know you make the right choices. So yeah, if you found this video helpful, please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe. If you want to support my work, please consider becoming a patron or donating. A lot of research and work are put into these videos, and your support is really appreciated. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.